CCSI, and I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's ThreatProtect Managed Service webinar. Today, Rob Villano of CCSI, a cybersecurity pre-sales engineer, will be doing the presenting. For those of you not familiar with who we are at CCSI, we've been in business since 1974, and our core competencies consist of infrastructure, incorporating the data center, which could consist of core switching, edge routing, IPT, wireless, disaster recovery, video surveillance, and access control systems. And then we play huge in the security market with remote workforce vulnerabilities, real-time breach detection, risk assessments, pen and vulnerability testing, DDoS solutions, secure mail, and also endpoint protection. And then we offer 24/7 application monitoring solutions combined with a 24/7 by 365 NOC. We are a managed service provider and also a managed security provider. So with our Security Operations Center, which you will be hearing more info about today. We also provide customized SLA hardware maintenance offerings for our customers. For any questions during today's call, please message them to the host during the call. And also wanted to make a note that you will be receiving a survey. So we do appreciate you filling everything out and your feedback. Very critical for us for doing events similar to this in the future. Also hearing about what is of interest specifically to you. So I'd like to take this opportunity right now and introduce you to Rob Villano of CCSI.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. And welcome everyone to CCSI's ThreatProtect service. Today, our discussion will be about the ThreatProtect platform and the managed service that CCSI offers. I'm a pre-sales cybersecurity manager here at CCSI. I'm first and foremost a data privacy advocate. I specialize in securing and safeguarding the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of highly sensitive data. I've done so in highly regulated environments. I enjoy working with clients to meet their compliance needs, as well as providing cybersecurity solutions to safeguard their critical assets. And so why don't we get started? I can also be reached at my email address there at rvillano@ccsinet.com. I'll also offer my internal phone numbers and contact information at the conclusion of today's presentation. So as I put this together, I did a little research and found, what I call, the data, or what's the cost of a data breach. And I found that information from an IBM report called Cost of a Data Breach Report 2020. And the average time to identify a breach in 2020 was about 228 days. And the average time to contain it was 80 days. So quite significant in that regard for both areas. The conclusion that is to be reached is that there's a need for improved network visibility, detection, and response. And so the solution that we have and we offer for our clients is a managed endpoint detection and response solution using ThreatProtect. And so as we move into, this decade, there's been a lot of talk of data breaches, and certainly at the core of that is ransomware. One of the key vectors that is in significant source of that ransomware is Microsoft's Remote Desktop Protocol, or RDP for short. And according to a recent ransomware article by ZDNet, based on Sophos research, phishing was the entry point for just 12% attacks. 48% of malicious email attacks come from Microsoft Office files, and we know this from email security information. 10% are from exploiting unpatched systems. But because of the remote working nature of our workforce these days, as well as supporting systems, there was an 800% spike in RDP attacks in 2020. Quite significant. This raised a lot of eyebrows, certainly mine, when putting this together. And RDP plays a role or a part in 90% of attacks, and it was used for external access in just 4% of cases, and external access and internal movement within 20% of cases. And then finally, what we really, really focus on is internal lateral movement when you're jumping from one system to another internally after you breach perimeter defenses. As you can see, RDP is a critical concern. We'll talk about that later on how to prevent it, how to prevent those types of attacks, but it's a major source of a major risk vector called ransomware. And so for today, I want everyone to focus on just 3 takeaways for today, right? So the first one would be endpoint detection and response, a critical cyber defense. We'll talk about what it is, what it does, and how it does it, and how we actually utilize this critical component of security control. We'll also look at managed services as a differentiator. At CCSI, we like to promote this because we see this as our key differentiator in our managed service offerings. It's people, process, and technology. I'll talk about how we integrate the 3 quite uniquely. And then we'll look at managed services integration using a layered cybersecurity defense approach. And we'll look at that. But these are the 3 areas as a takeaway today to really focus on ThreatProtect as a managed service. So let's get started with endpoint protection as some background information. First and foremost, endpoint protection consolidates, an endpoint's device security into a single function. And it does so by incorporating all of those security controls that we think about, right? Antivirus, anti-malware, we even host-based firewalls and application control. Components of this can also be seen in host-based intrusion prevention and detection, as well as behavioral blocking. All of these types of technologies are contained within endpoint device security. As we integrate this technology, it's also capable of integrating with other security solutions, such as vulnerability patch and configuration management. This is what provides the overall defense in depth that I talked about earlier for a true enterprise security strategy. Endpoint attributes are evaluated against predefined security rules. That's where we get the alerting mechanism that we talk about and we will talk about for the ThreatProtect managed service. And then finally, all of this alerting data and information can be managed and monitored via a central server, and activity reports are available in the cloud for consistent availability to alerting and to monitoring staff. So that's the background for endpoint protection. We all know that hackers don't sleep, but here at CCSI, we believe and we demonstrate this, that neither do we, right? So we offer 24/7, 365 monitoring through our flagship product called CCSI ThreatProtect. And so ThreatProtect as a service offers continuously monitoring network activity through real-time attack visibility. We do this by adaptive behavioral models, which is a long phrase for saying that we understand through expert behavioral analysis what typical user behavior looks like from a network perspective as well as a user perspective, and how to respond to it in a rapid sense, right? So Sam or Sally has a typical response mechanism in the way they use a machine or a set of endpoints. Through artificial intelligence and machine learning, we're able to understand, is that consistent with their typical user behavior? If it's not, we get an alert, both from a user perspective and ultimately from a network perspective. So this adaptive behavioral analysis provides for many benefits. It eliminates, labor-intensive threat hunting. You can imagine that we funnel thousands and thousands of alerts that are on the wire to our analysts, and we're able to really funnel that down to what's most important. So we tend to do that in a way to eliminate what's called alert fatigue for our analysts and SOC, labor. And so that allows us to act on what's important and it prioritizes and scores and correlates these detected threats to key assets so that we can act in an efficient manner. And so let's look at the ThreatProtect architecture, right? And this is a rather simplistic diagram that I put together, but it begins by looking at the endpoint and the logs that are sent to a collector. And there I've highlighted number one here. And so what I'm trying to do here is just point out that it begins at the collector, right? So the actual endpoint logs information, sends it to a centralized collector. From there, it goes to a VPN, which routes to a central server. So this is all done in a secure tunnel. And then finally, it's uploaded to an administrator for analysis at number three, where admins can look at it and understand whether it's an actionable type of an alert. And so in a nutshell, in a very simplistic view, this is the data flow for the ThreatProtect architecture. And so as I mentioned earlier, CCSI likes to differentiate itself and their managed service through ThreatProtect, our brand, through people, process, and technology. We have a unique way of integrating these three areas. First and foremost, our people as a most important component. We have at least 50 engineers on staff responsible for 24/7, 365 monitoring. They are certified in SOC. We have won awards in service for our fully trained and are fully trained on all solutions. And as Joe mentioned earlier, we've been in business since 1974, over 47 years. And so our process is a thorough one as we provide for ThreatProtect services. We're looking out for your enterprise. We're looking out for detecting and keeping those bad actors away from your infrastructure. We offer industry standard assessments as an onboarding mechanism for you prior to engaging in the managed service, service that we provide. We offer quarterly threat reviews. We develop custom runbooks, and we'll work with you on a full proposal and a full management service for you as required. Our technology is best in breed. It's managed fully by our staff, fully staffed in our SOC. And so we have a customer portal access, as I mentioned before, which is in the cloud. There may be synergies with your current install, and we'll talk to you about that. We'll review those with you. And we'll finally develop risk assessments of critical assets as we develop this managed service for you. And so what does the scoping and the onboarding look like? And so I put this slide together to focus on this, and it's quite simple and straightforward. We identify your data set, right? We identify the type of data that's important to you that needs to be sent to our security identification and event manager, our SIM, as it were. And then we estimate the number of messages per second necessary to fulfill alerting and triaging activity for you. We'll go through that with you. We look at mitigating incidents or monitoring only. We'll do that as well. We establish a log retention period for you. We'll look at any compliance or regulation mandates that you have for your organization. We'll determine the number of systems and logs sent to the SIM. So this is in customizing a proposal for you. We'll identify and review your entire device list. We'll obviously and most critically identify critical assets. And then we'll baseline alerting and response for you to give you a sense on what ThreatProtect will be alerting on and the types of alerts that are involved. And so that's the scoping and onboarding portion of our engagement with you. So for cybersecurity monitoring, what do you get? Well, this is what you get. You get asset discovery. So in signing up for this type of service, one of the components may be or can be asset discovery. We can also incorporate vulnerability assessment into the cybersecurity monitoring or ThreatProtect service. There's network behavioral monitoring that I spoke to earlier. So any anomalous behavior on the wire, we will know about through this service, and we'll alert you on that. The SIM is a critical component, the brains of the system, as it were, for log management and understanding what alerts are coming through and reporting on them. That's your reporting mechanism where our analysts can review it as well as your staff. User entity behavioral analysis. It's a long word for saying that we'll take a look at anomalous behavior by users. What is not typical, we'll do so in a very technology-based way through AI and machine learning. We mentioned earlier our endpoint protection, which is at the core of this service, where each endpoint has reporting responsibility back to the collector and ultimately to our central monitoring stations. And then, if necessary, there are some deception techniques that we can offer or utilize, and so we can talk to you about that as well. So along with the differentiators of people, process, and technology, CCSI offers these collectively. As I mentioned, we have fully trained security engineers on staff. We offer risk assessments as an onboarding process to identify your critical assets. We have a local SOC here, staffed fully on Long Island. So those folks that are in the tri-state know where we are, and we're local and can be contacted quite easily. We have a best-in-breed technology for our platform. This is according to independent research firms. We can develop custom runbooks for you, custom to create and to meet your expectations. We manage these services, not just monitor. So we will collaborate with you very closely on what's taking place and why, to allay any concerns or fully train you or identify the types of alerts that are coming through. We provide, in this sense, this platform can provide a security overlay for a defense in-depth strategy for your existing network and enterprise, and we go through that with you during the onboarding process as well. These are our differentiators. We're proud of them. We've seen great success with them, and we're happy to offer them to you as part of our engagement. And so to further that point, CCSI offers a myriad of cybersecurity services, all aligned with the NIST cybersecurity framework. This is a well-publicized framework that the Department of Homeland Security recommends, as well as being technology agnostic, so it may be utilized in a varied enterprises for varied organizations throughout the business community. And so we're happy to offer this. We align very closely with it. As you see there, it's the Identify, Protect, Detect, Respond, and Recover framework. Our services align very closely. And part of our ThreatProtect platform is in there, where we talk about managed endpoints, managed email, we'll manage your firewalls. We'll put together those security assessments and tabletop exercise, all through our managed SOC, offering vulnerability management and patch management as needed to our customers for full cybersecurity defense for your organization. We're happy to engage in these conversations with you. Give us a call. We can reach out with you to you and provide for this information critical to your cyber defenses today, especially with those very public attacks that have happened over this last 2-year period during our pandemic. And so we're happy to collaborate with you and demonstrate where we can strengthen your cybersecurity defenses. And so our SOC has been recognized in a number of different areas. We are first and foremost AICPA SOC 2 Type 2 certified. This is an important designation for us, which recognizes that we protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data. We're proud of that designation. Again, as I mentioned, we're located in Bohemia, here on Long Island. Our certified IT professionals are located in our SOC. and quite significant to our managed service provisions, and we're proud of that as well. Some of the areas where we've been recognized are here, and going through that for the MSP 500 from CRN in 2020, as well as being a top 10 managed IT service provider as recognized in CIO applications. With that, I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. Happy to take any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. Thanks, Rob. That was very informative. I'd like to introduce everyone to Catherine Irizarry of CCSI's marketing team. Kat, do you have any questions from the audience?
Yeah, I got a few in. The first question we got in was, what can be done to prevent against RDP attacks?
Well, it's a great question. And so, as I mentioned earlier, it's a really major source of ransomware. And ransomware, we know, has been on the top of mind of many security professionals, certainly over the last 2 years. But, there's a number of areas where you can strengthen your defenses against RDP. Certainly, you can restrict remote desktop protocol, its important protocol, from accessing the internet. What's been found out there in the community is that, believe it or not, there have been many cases where RDP is accessible to the internet. That is certainly not advisable and is a large hole allowing bad actors into your network. Using strong passwords, but to further that, using multi-factor authentication is certainly noteworthy and certainly a best practice and recommended. And then finally, as an overall enterprise solution, you can use what's called an RDP gateway for distributed enterprise access. This allows for one central area to distribute RDP access within your enterprise, preferably in a DMZ. And so that's another best practice, if you will.
Great. Thanks, Rob. The second question we got in was, what type of monitoring and detection does CCSI offer with ThreatProtect?
I went over it a little bit during the discussion, but specifics to the ThreatProtect monitoring detection is, we're looking at command and control, internal reconnaissance, lateral movement, data and even obviously data exfiltration, any botnet behavior, particularly, we're interested in user behavior that's not of the norm or anomalous, as I used the word earlier. And so all of those phases of a cyber attack are important for us to detect on and to alert on. We'll provide notifications, we'll provide isolation and mitigation tactics based on a run book that we would create with our customers. And this is mutually agreed upon between CCSI and the customer, and we review this with you on a regular basis.
Great. The last question we got in, unless we get any more in, is how does CCSI operationalize ThreatProtect?
Yeah, it's another great question, Kat. And so, we'll sit down with you, right? And so we'll go through the technology with you. We'll show you the platform. We'll take you through tuning policies based on an analysis of events during the baseline, and I had alluded to that earlier, all in an effort to reduce any false positives that may be present when we do the baseline. We'll normalize and categorize the events. We'll then monitor them using obviously the ThreatProtect platform. And we'll go through this with you as we collaborate. We'll respond to the client via email or phone or event notification, depending on your selection and what's best for you and your enterprise. We'll take a look at, monitoring, and not only will we monitor it, as I mentioned earlier, we manage the ThreatProtect platform, right? So we'll manage the health of the platform and remediate as needed. We offer monthly event reports as well as provide for quarterly threat and incident reviews, all as part of the services that we offer for ThreatProtect to keep your endpoints safe, to keep them monitored, and to keep you aware of what's taking place on your endpoints throughout your enterprise.
Thanks, Rob. That is all the questions I got in. Thank you for answering all of them.
Well, thank you very much, Kat. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Kat, and thank you, Rob. And to the audience, thank you for attending today's webinar. Your account managers will be following up to discuss next steps. And as I had mentioned earlier, a survey is going to be sent out to everyone. We appreciate your feedback. It better positions us for future events like this. And we try to target them specific to the audience, what you want to hear about and, what's a concern to you and your organization currently. So with that, I'd like again to thank everyone and have a great day and have a great holiday season. Thank you.